Do you ever feel tension creeping in as the holidays approach? Well, last year I found myself dreading family gatherings, probably many years, and stuck in that same exhausting cycle of stress and overwhelm. But what if I told you there's a way to reclaim that joy during this season? I know it's hard to believe, but in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to set those healthy boundaries and not only protect your peace, but also deepen your family connections and change your family culture. This truly can be the holiday that changed all others. Let's find out how. Hey parents, welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. Do you want to raise your kids better and have a stronger marriage? Are you up late at night researching marriage and parenting tools and self-care tips? Do you start each day hoping for deeper connections and less chaos, but it ends with family arguments and going 12 different directions again? My name's Kendra, wife, mom, therapist, and growth enthusiast. It wasn't until I discovered how to fulfill my unmet needs that I was finally able to show up as my best self as a spouse and parent. I realized that by meeting my needs, I could more fully meet the needs of my family with more energy and less resentment. In this podcast, I teach parents skills like boundary setting, prioritizing personal needs, communication, and claiming ownership. Just like my clients, you'll be shocked by the improvement in your marriage, parenting, and personal life when you focus on fulfilling your important unmet needs. Ready to prioritize yourself so you can quit mentally throat punching people? Then grab those earbuds and head outside, and let's rock and talk. We are back, and I feel like this is something that I want to bring up every holiday season because I have this influx of clients that want to talk about this for every session. And when my clients want to talk about it, and it's something that I'm experiencing, I know that it's something that you will care about. So no matter how many times you've heard it, it's important because truly I'm a therapist and my husband's a therapist, and we still stress about these things and feel overwhelmed and tense about the holidays. So it's time to look at it from another angle and have an action plan about how we're going to change it. But before we go into that, I want to quickly remind you to go to fulfillmenttherapy.org to look at our new courses. Our courses are going to very much teach you these things that are game-changing, like boundary setting, like assertiveness, communication, deepening relationships, all of these things. We have a course that's a personal growth course. We have a healing your home course that's going to be coming in the spring. The ones that are coming next semester, January 1st, are Find Your Focus. That's the first step in creating an online business and a podcast. And we also have Ignite Your Life, which is that personal growth course that will take your life to the next level, as well as Mend Your Marriage, which will do the same for your marriage. So go check those out, and I will not share more details about that right now. But let's get right into what I want to teach you about these game-changing things this holiday season. I want to start with a quick story. Actually, I have several from clients, but I had one come in recently, and I've been working with her for quite a while. And she just comes in now and then when things are a struggle as they pop up. And this one was about boundaries, and I am so impressed with how far she has come in standing up for herself and being assertive. And she's even doing things that I haven't done yet. And I learned from her example, and I wanted to share that with you today. What she did, she's like, you know what? I just want these tactical steps, like these tools that I can use to then take to my family. And we're going to do a family session as well. We identified that there's certain things that are very triggering now that she's had many family holidays and her kids are grown up, but it's become a family situation that is very tense, and they go into their old patterns very easily, like that passive aggressive, like jabs or criticism, and then it escalates from there, and it's eye rolling and it's shoulder shrugging and it's sighs and just very passive aggressive communication that ends up making everyone more and more tense and just a volcano ready to explode. And by the end, you could like cut that tension with a knife and everybody just wants to escape. Well, if you keep doing that holiday after holiday, people don't want to keep coming back, neither the kids nor the adults. And so the responsibility really does rest on everyone, especially if they're all adults, to change that family culture. So we talked about how we can do that in simple steps. And I've met with their family before and individually, many of them. But this time it was about, okay, we're going to have one session. I'm going to have one with you and one with all together. But we're going to identify some triggers. We're going to identify, and when I say triggers, I want to say some people don't understand what that means. Those big activators where you feel very threatened and you feel unsafe. Not that they're going to necessarily hurt you, but that you feel activated and very, like, it reminds you of things in your past that you don't want to remember or that were very hard for you. And you feel very tense and unsettled and ready to fight, flight, or freeze. I guess you could respond in many different ways based on who it is. Well, anyway, she talked about what those were for her family, the different triggers, what kind of activates people. And then we talked about behaviors that she knew would activate different people, that she's already seen that pattern of. And then we just developed these very brief, concrete boundaries. And that can be difficult for people, but we just went through them like, okay, that's a little bit vague. What does that mean? What does it mean to not have hostile gestures or aggressive gestures? Like, what does that look like in your family? And then we'd break it down like, okay, so what you're telling me is if somebody says something that is negative towards another person, that you will get up and you will leave the room, or you will look at them, you will not say anything, and you'll turn to the next person and start a conversation or end that conversation in one way or another. Is that what you're saying that you're going to do? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Okay, so we can communicate with this with the family, like, this is what I'm doing. This is why. This is why I want to feel safe. This is the family culture that I want. Now, that's a lot to remember, but I am including in the show notes a free worksheet that you can use to go through these steps by yourself first. If you have a therapist, you can even go through this with your family, or you can do it with your family on your own if you feel like you can have this in a productive and safe way. All right. So that is just a very quick talk about one of those things that I had, but I had several clients that have talked about this recently that I want to share some of those perspectives with you as well. Boundaries are essential limits that define where you end and others begin. So it's like this invisible line of respect in relationships, and that can be kind of confusing, I know. But during the holidays, these boundaries become even more important when we are navigating those complex family dynamics and even these different social obligations that might not be the case usually. When we understand and implement these healthy boundaries, though, you can actually, I promise you, actually enjoy the holidays and maintain your mental and emotional well-being. I know you're probably like, that's not possible. That's never happened before. Well, it is possible now, my friends, and I'm going to give you ways to make it possible. And remember that it's still a practice. You're going to have to practice this for a few holidays until you get it right. But maybe you're really determined and this truly could be the game-changing holiday. So boundaries are personal guidelines that protect your well-being. They're not walls that shut others out, and they're not these methods or manipulations to control their behavior. I don't really like that word manipulation. It's more like an influence, a positive influence. People do manipulate people, but that's not a healthy boundary. These are flexible limits that allow us to engage with each other meaningfully while still, this is the key here, while still preserving our own needs and values. And I think that's why it's hard for people to stand up for their values or their boundaries sometimes, because they don't recognize that it is protecting their needs and values. And they don't even necessarily know what their needs and values are. So they're essentially telling people like, hey, walk all over me and do all these things because I don't even know what I need or want or what I stand for. But if they do know what their values and needs are, and they do have the confidence to stand up for themselves, it's just a no-brainer, right? Of course you would protect something that you very much value. Of course you would protect your family. Of course you would protect maybe it's your faith, maybe it's your self-esteem, whatever it is. There's so many things that we value. Maybe it's our freedom. And when people infringe upon those, you're going to do something to protect. I love it this way. If anything from this podcast episode, I want you to think of it this way. boundaries are not walls, they're gates. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way before, but they allow us to let in what serves us well, what serves us, what we appreciate and we respect, and keep out what doesn't. So you are teaching other people how to respond to you based on what you are letting through that gate and what you are not letting in. So if you're letting in like a bunch of people that just walk all over you, then you're not going to have much respect from others. Boundaries are not walls, they are gates. They protect the things that you value. Now let's talk really quickly about types of boundaries. There's boundaries for all sorts of things, like physical boundaries for maybe personal space, like your bedroom. Maybe you don't want people in your bedroom that are strangers, obviously. But there might be emotional boundaries, like protecting our feelings. There might be mental boundaries. Maybe that's safeguarding your thoughts and your opinions around people that you don't feel are as safe. Maybe that's material concerning like your possessions or your money. Of course, you have boundaries probably around all these things already, but you didn't even really necessarily recognize them as boundaries. I want to give you some examples because that always seems to help me. But a physical boundary during the holidays might be setting a specific time limit for a family gathering so that you're not all so exhausted and running on fumes, because truly most of us are. We're like, oh, we don't see each other so a lot, so we really have to be together all day long. Well, truly my favorite people are the ones that are like, man, I get so exhausted after like 3 hours being together and I just need some downtime. So I'm going to go back to the hotel for a couple hours and then maybe I'll come back later and we can play games for an hour. Or maybe we'll just call it good and go home. And I'm like, thank you for saying that because that's exactly how I feel. And everybody else is secretly thinking that. So be that brave one that's willing to talk about that this holiday season. This could also look like an emotional boundary of deciding not to talk about heated political discussions or even faith topics at the dinner table. Like, I know I've been a little bit gun shy and probably too passive with this because I know that certain family members really value certain things, but in the process, I've allowed them to trample my value of faith too often. And now, is that their problem or is that my problem as well? Because I have allowed that to happen. And truly, it's both, right? We can each take ownership. So if this is happening again and again, there's something you can do on your side of the street. And I'm getting better and better at this. But maybe sometimes like you're not coming face to face with it enough because it's during holidays. So you just think, oh, I'll just let it go again because I don't see them that much. Well, that obviously is not working and it's not serving anyone. So maybe it's time to step forward with bravery, myself included. All right, let's talk about how we can make boundaries clear. Clear communication is key for very effective boundaries. One of the simplest things that you can do is use I statements to express your needs or your wants or your values without blaming or attacking other people and really trying to stay away from those infinites or like you always, you should, you never, but just simply I statements. And now be specific and direct when you communicate, leaving no room for misinterpretation. That is really hard. I know when I work with my clients and we troubleshoot or we work through what was said and what went wrong, it often is there where it wasn't very specific or direct. And the other people involved had no idea really what they were getting at or very specifically what it was they were wanting. Like with my client in that example I shared where she said, I don't want like hostile behavior from you. Like, okay, but what does that mean? And what will you do? I'm going to give you another example. So instead of saying, you always stress me out during the holidays, try instead to say something like, I need some alone time each day to recharge during our visit so that I can be my best self and not so reactive. And it can even be smaller than that. Just like, I just need some alone time each day to recharge. And that's it. That can be enough. You don't have to over-explain. Now, a lot of my clients get tripped up when it comes to the setting of the boundaries, but also the maintaining of those holiday boundaries or any boundary. But you can start by identifying what your needs are and potential stress points during the holiday season. Now, I'm going to put this in the show notes in that sheet, and it will kind of guide you through this step by step, how you can do this in a simple way. Now, think about those past experiences that are like during the holidays. Those times that have caused you a lot of discomfort or anxiety or depression, whatever that is, like as you think back on it, like why was it so distressing? What happened? What was that key point that really activated you? Anna Lamott said, no is a complete sentence. So there might be times in family dynamics where you just need to simply say no. And you don't have to over explain. You don't have to go into a lot of detail, and they might be offended. But if it is clearly crossing a line and infringing upon your values, no is okay. And you model that for your kids too, which is amazing as well. I want to give you permission, my friends, to decline invitations or requests this holiday season that don't align with your well-being or your values. That is okay. You do not have to explain when it is not in congruence with your values. For example, maybe they're playing games late at night and you get up really early, or you have a newborn, or maybe they're drinking and you don't drink and you don't want anyone to be offended, but it doesn't align with your values, and that's okay. You can just say, no, thank you. And that's it. It doesn't have to be more than that. So how can you, in simple ways, though, enforce your boundaries? When you fill out the sheet that's in the show notes, just by doing this in advance, you can plan your responses and troubleshoot this before it actually happens. So this preparation will help you stay calm when you're faced with those things, those cycles that you and your family get in over and over. And I'm going to give you another example here. So this was actually another client, but her family, she is trying to get sober. She has a family history of a lot of alcoholism and not really owning it, they're not going through sobriety or any of these things. And it's causing a lot of stress for her in those family dynamics. So maybe there's a lot of alcohol consuming with your family gatherings and it makes you uncomfortable. Well, decide beforehand that you're going to leave early if that occurs, and then share that with your family. Like they know that you are trying to get help, you're trying not to drink, that these things are triggering. So you could do a few different things there. Like you could have a family meeting about like, hey, is it okay if we don't have alcohol? Or it could be that alcohol comes out, like that's fine. You can do what you want to do. And I'm just going to leave early when that happens. So it's again in delivery. Like, how are you doing that? Is it like a spiteful kind of manipulation, or is it just simply like you are allowed to make your own choices and that's completely fine? And what is best for me and my personal mental health and wellness is to just leave when that happens. And that's totally okay. That's just something I'm choosing to do. Another example that I thought of is in my family, there's a big variety of beliefs when it comes to faith and different religious practices. And some people are triggered by prayer, and some people are triggered when there's no prayer. So it's like, how do you maintain that and be respectful to all parties involved, where you're not infringing upon their own beliefs and values? And this is just one suggestion. You could take it or leave it. But it can be like, if it's at my house, for example, I could be like, well, I very much value faith and I value my religion and I want to practice those things. Now, I don't have to abandon my value because somebody else doesn't have that same value, but I can simply say, it's important for me and my family and my values to have prayer, but I totally understand if you want to come in a few minutes late, or if you prefer to stay in the living room, or what could occur where I'm not infringing upon your values either and making it uncomfortable for you. Like it could just be a very simple conversation. And I know if somebody said that to me, like, hey, I know you really value prayer and we're not having prayer, what would be comfortable for you where you still feel like your values are respected? Like I would be so touched by that, because we all have differences, but it's just learning how to navigate those. All right, I know I've shared a lot of this, and some of this is just maybe you need time to process, because these are patterns that have been very triggering for a very long time. So I don't want to overdo it either, but just really briefly mentioning that self-care is really important towards maintaining those boundaries, especially during the holidays when you're probably exhausted, you're doing a lot of prep work, there's a lot of people around. Take the time to do those things that will rejuvenate you, like exercise, meditation, that little personal time out. Because remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. So when you take care of yourself, you'll be better able to handle those potentially stressful family dynamics and still maintain your boundaries. So just in conclusion, my friends, don't forget how important it is to both set and maintain your boundaries during the holidays. It's such a powerful tool for reducing your stress and improving your family relationships. It's the skill that requires a lot of patience and practice, as my clients can attest, and why they keep coming back and they get a little bit better every time. And I remind them, like, hey, this is part of the human experience. It is okay that you did not 100% nail it. But last time, like maybe the last 10 years, you probably got like a D or an F on your report card. I don't actually say that because that's kind of shame based. But this time you got like a high C. Like we are going up and this is awesome. We're improving and getting better and better. And let's celebrate that. Please remember that your needs are valid and that healthy boundaries are a gift for both you and your family members. And you're modeling to those little people in the home, whether they're nieces or nephews or whoever, that it's okay to stand up for yourself and your values respectfully. You don't even have to be super respectful if they're being super out of line and you just need a hard no. Sometimes that has to happen. So again, there's that free worksheet in the show notes. So check that out because we'll break it down for you and you can really figure out what you want to set, how you can maintain that, and how you can change your family dynamic around the holidays, especially concerning boundaries. So check that out. And don't forget to check out fulfillmenttherapy.org. Check out our blog. We release blog articles twice a week. And anything else, if you want to reach out to us, you can contact us on the website and ask us any questions, things you want to know for improving your mental health and wellness, or maybe you want to be a guest on the show, or you want me to be a guest on something. You can find all of those things there. Check it out. And my friends, best of luck this holiday season. If you do this, it will change that cycle, that pattern, and completely elevate your family culture to something you can be proud of and a legacy you're excited to hand to the next generation. Take care, my friends, and I will see you back here in just a few days. Hey, friends, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, chances are someone else would too. Would you take 30 seconds to share this with a friend who's looking for greater family fulfillment? And while you're sharing, tell me what you think about the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts. It refuels me when I hear this podcast is helping you. No matter what your house or your hair looks like, I'll meet you back here every Monday and Thursday morning for more episodes. Until then.